Hello, Adrian here. So, we now have the Simpsons house, or a house of some description, inside our model. Hopefully this would be your architecture and not plagiarism. Now we need to get around the model. As you can see, you can move. So, you probably want to know how to move. First thing you need to do is click down on the right button. As you can see, you have this little crosshair in the interface. We want to right click on the viewport, and now you can control the pivot of the camera. Basically, within Unreal, instead of moving around the model, as we do within Rhino, we actually are kind of an object in space, and we're pivoting our head around. So we can look up at the sky if we move our mouse forward, and we can look down at the floor if we move our mouse back. And as you know, left and right will move us left and right. In addition to that, if you use, while holding right click, the WASD keys, which, as any of you that have played, well, most PC-based video games would know, sort of moves you around, especially for those using first-person shooters. As you can see on the floor, it even says first-person template, because that's the mode that we're using to sort of work around in this model. So we use WS to move forward and back, A and D to move left and right, respectively. In addition to that, you can use E to move upwards and Q to move downwards. And between these, you can move around and fly around your model. Because models that you're going to be working on can be a variety of scales, and you might be working on a whole street or a whole city, you want to be able to move around a bit quicker. If you go to the top right-hand corner of the viewport, which is this big box here, you can see a little camera speed button, which is this little camera with some whooshing going behind it. Whoosh, look at it go. So we want to perhaps, let's say we're using a really big model, we want to be using, actually no, let's say we're using a really small model, a tiny little guy. We want to go down to 2, and as we move it 2, we can see we're inching forward with this, by holding W down. Because, of course, the keyboard can only take a binary input, either pressed or isn't, we can only move at a certain speed, so we have to set that up there. If we go over and set it way up to 8, we are going to zoom. So you can see we're way away from this model now. Now, because we probably want to be using increments between these, there is a quick little tip. What you should do is probably set the camera at the camera speed at a speed that's comfortable for you to move around your model. So let's say probably 4, maybe 5 is about right for this scale of a model. Let's move it up to 5. So yeah, this feels rather good. If you want to move a bit slower, you can just use the scroll wheel while holding the right click. If you scroll it towards you, you'll start to go slower, and if you scroll it away from you, you'll start to go faster. And basically, this is how you should be sort of navigating yourself around and adjusting your speed. So if you're moving up close to the model, you can lower your speed by scrolling back, and now I can see this little window detail, and if I scroll it forward, I can zoom back and see the site as from a distance. Yes, that's the basics of camera controls. The only thing else you pretty much have to think about is if you look at the top left-hand corner, you'll see that there are the orthographic views as well. And so these operate very similar to how they work in most software, which you're able to right-click to grab around and pan and scroll to move in and out. Just as a last note, in perspective, you can actually pan by clicking down the right and left mouse, the middle mouse button, but this is moving in reference to your camera plane. So it's not as intuitive as sort of just moving left and right, but it is a useful tool if you just want to move a little increment around. But yeah, that's camera movement in a nutshell.
This project was supported by a UTS Widening Participation Strategy, First Year Experience Grant, funded through the Australian Government Higher Education Participation and Partnership Program. The videos were produced by Matthew Austin and Adrian Taylor.